about me and my topics the other night. Mind you, you pushed a whole lot of white supremacy rhetoric.
Oh, you see, that's your problem.
What's my problem?
Because even though you argue about anti-racism and decolonization, you have to provide disclaimers. Not all of the things that apply to the United States apply to indigenous peoples outside of the United States.
What do I got to provide disclaimers for?
For indigenous peoples, they have their own experiences outside of the United States.
You're not answering my question. What do I got to provide disclaimers for? When it came to my topics that you decided to talk about me in two different lives about.
BGP, what you did is
what was your problem with my topics that you decided to talk about me in two different lives about? Just answer the question. I don't do deflection techniques, yo. I don't do deflection techniques. So just answer the question. What was your problem?
You blocked me.
Right, because you already rubbed me the wrong way, and you've been in lives that participated talking about me. And didn't you say something about my PTSD? And I'm sorry. Do you know me to talk about my PTSD?
Okay, so
no, you don't.
Like I said,
that's why I blocked you.
The reason why you blocked me is because you know you're being hypocritical when it comes
about
to
what? What am I being hypocritical about?
Okay, you said that open borders equals freedom and closed borders equals racism. That's not always true. That's not
It's
true.
Absolutely true. Borders are rooted in European colonization and white supremacy. So I'm not sure where you're going to sit here and say that you're indigenous and you believe in closed borders. Mind you, you also said that reservations should have closed borders. And if you don't understand what a true closed border is, hush. If you don't understand what a true closed border is, a true closed border is what North Korea has. Closed borders keep people in. And Native Americans on reservations already have closed borders. And that means you don't know shit about what the fuck you're talking about. So I'm not sure what you think you're so fucking indigenous because you're talking on regions that you're not from. Are you not? Are you not? You're not from regions at all that you want to sit there and talk about. So which is it today? Are you Caribbean or are you Northern Native? Why are you speaking on reservations? You're not even from the United States, correct? So obviously you don't know the history, and you know that closed borders around reservations was designed to keep them inside. Is that what you not get?
You sound horrible.
Is that what you not get?
You sound horrible.
No, I don't sound horrible. You are not indigenous when you sit there and spew white supremacy rhetoric. I don't care if you got the DNA, the lineage, what not. If you're pushing white supremacy rhetoric, you're not indigenous, sweetheart. You are a white supremacist. You uphold white supremacy. That's what you do.
Question. Real quick. Question. I see this a lot, and if we always come to the who's more Indian than the other Indian, or you're not a real Indian, or you're too Indian. You know, I hear that a lot. And
No. When people push white supremacy rhetoric, it don't matter if you're 100% Indian, if you're 1%. It doesn't matter. When you push and uphold white supremacy rhetoric, then that's a problem. I don't care how indigenous or how not indigenous you are. You are an agent of white supremacy. Point blank period. For the fact that you as an indigenous person, not only anti-black as fuck, because I heard why you said you wanted closed borders was to keep African people out.
Are we talking about
people were not colonizing over here? But you ain't got shit to say about Europeans who want to keep forced borders onto our people and preventing our people from moving freely across their own lands. Because you don't know shit about shit. And you talk about shit that you don't know nothing about. You also promote eugenics. You also promote blood quantum. All of that falls in eugenics.
Question, real quick.
So yeah, it's nothing but white supremacy rhetoric.
Colonization. Let me ask you a question. And colonization is when you make those people who you are. It's when you make them your beliefs and your morals and your values, you push it on them. So are we talking about colonization? Or are we talking about white supremacy?
That's not just what colonization is either, right? Like,
no.
Yeah, she just swinging those terms around because it sounds.
You don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Well, let's go to head instead of
the fact that you think the fact that you think that the reason why Caribbean islands need borders is to keep African people out is anti-black as fuck. It is what it
Oh,
is.
this is a
That's
good
why
one.
you
This is
want
a good
closed
one.
borders.
No,
You want closed borders because you are a white supremacist who wants to push
a colonizer.
Can I agree?
colonization and white
Can I
supremacy
agree?
You are
rhetoric
a
Can I,
against
colonizer.
other
can I
groups
agree
of
You
something?
people.
are a freaking colonizer.
That's crazy
Can I
because I
agree?
got the whole video
are
and
Can
I
I
can
agree?
post the whole fucking
colonizer.
video.
Okay.
Everybody
Can I
knows
agree
I
something?
always got
Right.
receipts.
Well, listen,
Not only
I'm
that,
speaking for
you
indigenous
promoted the
people.
idea that reservations
Speaking,
should be
This
closed
woman
borders.
is a
And
speaking
closed
for
freaking.
borders and
minorities.
reservations
Someone
harms
shut her
people
up.
Speaking
because
for
you don't
indigenous
know what a
people
closed
and
border actually
minorities.
means.
Please, real quick, please.
Is it okay if I skip you and leave it with Notorious Behike? Because
Hey, okay, so
out of the way.
the definition for who is and isn't indigenous enough is argued on a daily basis in the Supreme Court of the United States as an effort to slowly chip away at our community, and it has successfully been doing so. I understand saying someone isn't indigenous enough is supposed to be some way to shame them into acting right. I don't think it's working. We need to unite. That's it.
I'll come back to you.
I just say one thing. I think that reinforcing both the identity and the borders that white people allow us to have is furthering their purpose. You can skip me now, though.
Okay.
All right. So, what Notorious is talking about, as I said, she's anti-Dominican. Dominican Republic has the largest number by population of Taino descent people. Haiti is a country populated by 90% non-indigenous people, people that do not have any indigenous ancestry whatsoever. And the other, well, no, it's 98%. Sorry about that. 98% have 90% African and 10% European DNA. The other 2% have anything from 3% to less than 1%. Okay, so she is being a hypocrite and she's being dishonest. We do not want foreigners. It doesn't matter if they were European or Chinese or whatever. We do not have to have open borders for foreigners. Sorry.
All right. So one, again, if you are an advocate for borders because borders are literally rooted in white supremacy, then you are pushing white supremacy rhetoric, period. I don't care what time period it is. There is no reason for borders. And if your reason for borders is to keep, quote unquote, people of color, foreigners, especially Haitians, out from the Dominican Republic, mind you, those are still indigenous lands, period, point blank. So you guys don't get a way to say that everybody should have no borders. Have borders to keep out people that should freely move across their lands as their human right, as we've always done up until the last 500 years here. That's number two. Now, also, don't sit here and tell me about anything about closed borders when you sit there and you talked about having reservations, having closed borders, when the very reason of reservations having closed borders was to keep them locked in. You don't know what you're talking about, and you push nothing but white supremacy rhetoric. And I see why people can't stand you now. I was right by blocking you.
May I say something? Okay, so is borders actually a white thing? I mean, like, do we talk about white rhetoric? My thing isn't a black thing, a white thing, a red thing, a yellow thing. To me, like, is it like imperialistic? Is it a racial thing? Because borders are all over the world. I mean, you look at the Great Wall of China. That border wasn't trying to keep anybody out, but say like the Mongolian Empire. Is it imperialism we should be talking about? That's the problem. I mean, that's questions I like to ask. And I guess I got 10 seconds on here. So to me, like, borders are something that's strange to me, because those are our relatives down south of the United States. That border is our Berlin Wall.
Marina, I want to answer this nonsense that BGP says. Okay, so she says that Haitians should have the right to freely move on their land. Ma'am, hello, Christophora Columbus. Listen to this.
That's not what I said.
Not any kind
I
of
said
land
human
that
beings should have the right to move freely across all
bitch.
lands. That's what I said. That's a human right.
That's not their land. That's
and that
not
it doesn't
their
matter.
land.
Indigenous people don't believe in land ownership.
You are a colonizer.
So you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're colonized as fuck, my dude.
You are a colonizer. That's what you are.
No, I'm not. That's you.
You are working towards the erasure of indigenous
That's you.
peoples.
Why do you hate yourself so much?
The US border.
Why do you hate other people from different origins and backgrounds so much? Your white guilt pissing you off? You're mad about your white guilt?
To deprogram from your colonial experience.
It's okay,
in the US
we
military.
get it.
That's what you need to do because you do not know what you're talking about, or maybe you do and you're just doing it for notorious purposes.
Sounds like you.
Sick. But so the thing is
that an indigenous person is pushing to have borders is
the land of Quisqueya does not belong to Chinese.
That's a white
it doesn't belong to
supremacist rhetoric.
Australians. It doesn't belong to anybody. But
I think I interrupted her, but since I'm on, is there any way we can stop with the ad hominem and calling indigenous people colonizer? You can't colonize your own lands. You can act in a way that is not indigenous, but it doesn't negate the fact that you're indigenous to these lands. Okay? Many of us have family members who don't act favorably for our people. It doesn't negate our indigeneity. Every time we're sitting here doing that and validating each other, especially publicly, I promise you, a white man from the government sitting on the sidelines with popcorn, a pad of paper, and a pen, and he's taking notes, and we're going to see it in the next round of the Supreme Court when our sovereignty is attacked. Can we please stop? You can say someone's not acting in our best interest, but they're not a colonizer if they're indigenous.
I agree with everything. I cede my time to Atira and BGP.
person works for the colonizers, they become a colonizer, just like the Indian scouts that we were talking about earlier. Yeah, those are old Indian wars, but there's new Indian wars too. And I'm going to
Some of my ancestors did that. I'm Pawnee. I'm Skeety Pawnee. And you know what? They were forced into those circumstances. And you know what? Today, some of us are brainwashed and forced into those circumstances through ignorance. We're dying from ignorance. It's a cancer. We're dying from the lie that the colonizer told us, that we are other, that we are not family, that we should not stand together. Look at them. They're a different tribe. Look, let me lower my voice. I'm not even supposed to be getting this upset. I'm anemic. Don't fall for it. Don't help. We're helping the colonizer when we help them chip away at our community. What, the colonizer gets in and infects one of our family members, so that's another one of our family members lost, another of our community lost? I get it. We need to work on helping people and not rejecting them. And yeah, that's more work, but it is what it is.
So just to clarify, the whole point of the conversation we were having about that dark part of history was not to say that indigenous people became colonizers. That's not possible. So I don't want anyone to walk away from that. You know, we're not talking about Lorena's people becoming colonizers. That's crazy. We're not talking about anybody becoming colonizers. They're indigenous people. We should give them the respect of their indigeneity deserves, right?
A colonizer is someone who works for the colonizers, okay? I have family members who are colonized. I call them out, okay? They're working for the colonizer. They're colonizers, period. I tell them that, okay? Being indigenous means practicing the culture. If you don't want to practice the culture, you're a colonizer, okay? A person can be 90% indigenous blood. If they want to rep for Spain or Britain and want to colonize, because see, that's what they do. They rep for the colonizer and then they go overseas and colonize. Okay, they rip other indigenous peoples away, just like indigenous peoples in Asia, indigenous peoples in the Levant, indigenous peoples everywhere in Africa. Okay, and that's not a little thing. Just when we're being indigenous in the Americas does not give us the right to go and colonize other peoples in the world. But I'm talking about in the Haiti situation, BGP is being a colonizer, and she knows it. She knows it deep down in her blood and marrow.
So, again, you push colonizer rhetoric and white supremacy rhetoric, so that means you are an agent of white supremacy. When you sit there and push the idea of breeding with other native people to breed out European or African bloodlines, that's not a thing. That's pseudoscience. That's white supremacy science. When you talk about closed borders, again, that's rooted literally in colonialism. We didn't create these borders, colonizers did, and they did that to separate and control. That was the purpose of them. So if you're an indigenous person and you are pushing white supremacy rhetoric, then you are doing nothing for your people. And in my opinion, you might as well go be them. And you're tokenizing indigeneity at that point. And regardless of those who serve, everybody is complacent in colonization, if you want to talk about it that way, because we all are working in these systems. So there's no moral high ground here.
Don't even try it, okay, BGP. You know, you want to talk so much like the science and all this stuff.
Hold up.
Well, we shouldn't breed out with white people, or
Hang on.
Listen.
Is race biological?
Hang on. Can we do a showtime one more time?
No, I'll stay on mute. I'll be good.
I'm not talking about you. She keeps talking. I want to respond to what you last said. I think it's important to address. What you're calling a colonizer is a traitor. Two different definitions. You can't colonize your own land. You can assist the colonizer, but you're still indigenous if you're indigenous. It is what it is. Either you had ancestors here prior to colonization or you didn't. Now, something far worse, a traitor, is a whole thing. I haven't heard anybody ever use that word on this app. It is what it is. Somebody can be colonized and they can be a traitor even. And that's horrible. And yeah, you can tokenize your own indigeneity. It happens. But we need to stop cutting away at our community, because if we have to have gold in our bones and we have to be perfect people and always be working towards what's good for our community to qualify as indigenous, well, my bloodline would have been cut off at my mother and father because they were both drug addicts. They didn't act right. But guess what? When
it comes to natives from south of the border. Okay, if you go to any other continent and start mishmashing the indigenous people there, you're a fucking colonizer. Period.
If you have ancestors here prior to Columbus, you're indigenous. Whether or not you're connected is another matter.
I don't give a crap or a rat's patootie what native nation.
Then don't argue this in academic circles because you're factually incorrect.
You are doing blood quantum and percentages when you don't even understand what you're talking about.
DEI bullshit. Out of native Taino matters.
Are you gonna let other people talk?
Say notorious BGP.
Are you gonna let other people talk?
Remove that because that's already trademarked a jeans company. Okay?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I know it's trademarked, and actually, there's a video out showing it's not. So try again.
But anyway,
again. Try again. It's not trademarked.
Rhetoric.
He doesn't even have a job, bro.
Rhetoric, your nonsense colonial rhetoric.
But okay, it's not trademarked. There's a whole video showing all the trademark names, but okay.
That has nothing to do with you. Okay?
Anyway, can we get on to the conversation about science that you don't know?
Does not have anything to do with the.
Can we get on to the science that you don't know?
That inhabit the
can we get on to the science that you don't know, or are you just gonna fucking talk?
The science of indigenous the indigenous biology,
what?
biology or botany Okay, we already
botany
know.
has to deal with plants.
That's right. Yes, exactly. But also has
Okay,
to
no,
do
no,
with
I'm talking
people.
about.
And
I'm
what
not.
saying
There's
to
not an
you is
indigenous
that
science of biology. Biology is just biology.
Epigenetics
Do you
is
know what
part of
epigenetics
biology.
means?
Epigenetics is part
You don't
of
even know what
biology.
you're talking about.
You need to shut up, BGP. You need to shut
I
the
don't.
fuck
I'm
up.
just.
Okay,
I'm
that's
just.
what you need to do because you're a
When you
disrespectful
resort to the way you are talking, that means you don't know what you're talking
Your
about.
friends here
Keep
have
on
been
stuttering.
telling that a traitor is worse than a colonizer. Okay, so you're a colonizer and a traitor. All right. So the thing is that in our native ways, when
Well,
we
you promote
marry
eugenics.
our own people, we keep
Eugenics
our
is rooted in
mannerism, we
white
keep
supremacy.
our culture. Okay. That's what happens. And we have the right to want to marry our own people and to keep
You
our
can marry
bloodline.
whoever you want
Because
to, but to promote the fact
Notorious,
that you are going to breed out a bloodline is literally promoting
Notorious,
eugenics
shut
because
up.
that is absolutely
Notorious,
not
shut the
possible.
fuck up.
It's
Shut
not
the fuck up.
biologically possible.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm
Shut the
sorry,
fuck
you're
up.
not
Shut
fucking
the fuck up,
science
okay?
literate. It's not my
You're full of
fault.
shit. You're
When
full
was the
of
last
shit.
time you
You're
took a
sick
biology
little
class?
colonizer. That's what
Fucking
you
10th
are.
grade? Your sophomore year?
Notorious.
That was the last time you took a biology class.
Listen.
Can you prove to me that race is biological?
You
Can you
need.
prove it? You got sources?
I'm not arguing.
You got sources?
Listen.
You got sources?
Listen, clown.
I mean, you're making claims, but
Clown,
see,
listen.
when you resort to insults, then that means you ain't got nothing to say.
The ad hominems aren't helping. If you're angry, just freaking chill for a second. Think about what matters.
Ideas across, and it's not fair. Okay, this is a very badly moderated space. Okay, but this whole thing about we should be marrying every foreigner that comes around because there's no way to breed out our native people. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because when you have parents that are not from the culture, they teach the children differently. They don't share the same habits. They don't understand native children. Okay, this has been widely studied of interracial families. Okay, quote, so-called interracial families, even black and white. When white mothers bear black children, okay, this is just a fact. And BGP wants to act as if that's not a thing. It is a thing, and I come from such family, okay, and I've experienced that harm. Okay, it is harm that we're trying to prevent.
Okay, again, you are science illiterate, and I'm not. That's a fact. That's not calling anybody names. You do not understand biology at all whatsoever. Race is not biological. Neither is ethnicity, which is the culture that a group of people practice. So you can have several races in one culture. Again, you cannot breed out a bloodline. It is not biologically possible to do so. To say otherwise is literally promoting eugenics, which is based in scientific racism, which is based in white supremacy. You don't believe me? Go look it up. Educate yourself. Period, point blank. So before you call anybody a traitor or not indigenous or whatever you want to say, recognize the white supremacy rhetoric you push and uphold.
What's genetic drift? I want to ask you that question. What's genetic drift?
Oh, well, I can
Every generation that you
you guys, anybody can unmute their mic.
every generation that you reproduce, there's a less likeliness that you'll pass down all of your genetic code. So over time, over generations after generations after generations, the genetic code that you pass down will become smaller and smaller and smaller. Eventually,
thank you, Subcomandante. Thank you. Thank you,
over enough. Well, I mean, I don't agree with your whole Dominican genocide shit that you push as far as letting Haitians come in. They're going to breed you guys out of existence.
I don't care what if you believe, but that is the term, genetic drift. Okay, that is the term. Just because I haven't studied the vernacular of genetics,
Well, genetic drift doesn't exactly say that, though.
Okay. Well, whatever. Okay, and as I said, it's not entirely about the genes, because I've talked in these forums where I mentioned someone who was matched with the tribe of Ramses.
I just want to say, yeah, it is possible to breed people out by genetics, but culture, no. If you look at Hawaii, where I'm from, we are perpetuating our culture. That takes an actual act. You cannot breed out a culture. You can breed out genetics, but you cannot breed out a culture. And that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I mean, I
you know,
think
this
there would have to be a lack. Hold on, there would have to be a lack of any of that that Dominican DNA or that Taino DNA, right? So like,
what did you say?
I mean, like there would have to be a lack of that Taino DNA that you're afraid of being erased.
Yeah.
Like,
Lack? What do you mean?
Like it would have to completely go away.
Why? First
like
of all,
there have to be no more people with that in there.
Race is not biological, period,
I am
point
not
blank.
talking about race, BGP. Don't even try it.
Race is real, but it's not genetic.
I'm not talking about race, okay? So that's just a whole
So
bunch
is
of crap.
ethnicity. Culture is also not genetic. So what are you talking about when you talk about bloodlines?
You're using logical fallacies. That's a red herring.
No, it's not. You don't know what you're talking about.
You know, genetic drift. Genetic drift
I
occurs.
never mentioned
Listen,
anything
Behike.
about race.
Behike, genetic drift.
So again, race is not
I never
biological.
mentioned
All
anything about
Behike,
race.
hold
I
on.
never said anything about
Stop
race.
talking. Listen.
Shut up, Behike.
Listen.
Goddamn.
Genetic drift exists
I'll
even in
explain
homogenous
genetic drift.
populations. You can have a population of 100% pure Tainos after a certain amount
There's
of
no
time.
such thing as a pure Taino. Stop.
This is for rhetorical purposes. This is
Yeah, the changing of allele frequencies over time, and then like all of that stuff. Changing the expression of some alleles or not in the population with respect to breeding efforts is inescapable, really. I don't know that there's like a whole lot to be gained from that discussion. It gets really like racist is the wrong word here, but eugenicist I think is the way that I would go with that argument. Like the concept of a pure blood is it's not possible. It doesn't exist. It's false, right? Like we're all mixed matched within our communities, right? Like it's
so. I know there's no such thing as a so-called pure Taino, whatever, right? Well, let's say there's like a homogenous population where everybody there is more or less identical genetically. I mean, not twins identical, but you know what I mean. Even with such a population like that, genetic drift occurs even in that population. The certain genetic variants that exist in your code are less likely to be passed down every generation because of natural mutations that occur every time you breed. So it's like you said, it's unavoidable. So trying to do this like racial preservation through controlling of immigration and stuff like that is really it's a pointless endeavor. It's not something you can stop. It's going to happen, and trying to prevent it is just going to violate human rights. It's not even worth pursuing.
Okay, Subcomandante Mateo, listen, I understand that you're a Marxist and you're a communist and all of that other stuff, and you like to speak in these very certain terms, but as I said before, you're not Taino, you are Northern natives, and what a real indigenous person does is respect the culture of the people where they are, okay, where the person is from. I'm actually on my indigenous lands of the Igwe Casicasco. That means the governorate of Igwe, the land of the children of the rising sun in Quisqueya, the land who comes from the creator, okay? That is my people, that is my land, okay? Get your sticky North American colonizer DEI initiative shit the fuck out of the Caribbean. You do not belong.
So again, Race is real as a social construct. It is not genetic. Any kind of pushing for breeding out a race is literally rooted in eugenics. This is historical fact. It's historical fact. When we're talking about things like genetic drift and mutations over time not being passed down or less of them being passed down, has nothing to do with race at all. We've been admixing since the beginning of human creation. We've admixed with other hominid species. It's essential for survival. We are not different subspecies of one species. We are all the same species. Therefore, you cannot breed out a race. It is not possible. It's eugenics. It's white supremacy. Anybody who pushes that upholds that.
I was listening, but I'm still lost on where the white supremacy is. Can BGP unmute and answer that? Maybe address it.
Yeah, hold on. I got you. Hold on. Here you are. Now BGP should be able to unmute.
Okay, so when you look at the history of scientific racism, eugenics was derived out of social Darwinism. Social Darwinism was the idea of creating a pure race. Eugenics was the idea of creating a pure people, a pure human, which meant breeding out certain things that they thought were biological, like intellectual disabilities or physical disabilities, skin color, eye color, hair color, behavioral traits that they thought, like for poverty, they thought certain behavioral traits caused people to be poor. These are the. Can I please finish? I'm not done.
I'd like to.
Please let me finish.
Let her finish.
So, this is what eugenics was born out of. Was the idea that you can breed out certain traits, and that's not how biology works. As genetics grew in a science and people understood genetics and how genetics actually worked, that is when they were able to debunk the notion that race was actually biological. White supremacy was the idea, was backed by scientific racism, and it was the idea that biologically the white race was more superior to other races. And that was the idea behind it. So because of that,
I get all of that. I know, like that's pretty basic stuff. But like, I'm more asking, what is it that Behike is saying that is the white supremacy, right? Can you answer that part? Can you get them?
So when you promote the idea that you can breed out a race or a culture, you are promoting the idea that race is biological, which has been debunked. Race as a biological concept falls under scientific racism, which falls under eugenics and white supremacy. So when you promote the idea that you can breed out a race and within 6 generations, you can breed out European or African DNA, that's false. It never goes away.
Okay, so this woman right here is using what is called a straw man fallacy, a logical fallacy that replaces parts of an opponent's argument in order to prove them false. So it's a trap. I never one time have I ever mentioned that there are different races of people. I myself do not subscribe to race science. Race science is trash. There is no scientific basis for anything that has to do with races of people. Okay, that debunks you right there, Notorious. That has nothing.
Can you address what is the point that you were making with the?
Well, Captain Mays, I don't need to actually refute. I do not actually need to refute a strawman argument. I'm not going to.
Right, I'm telling you to restate your original argument. Restate your original argument so I could understand what that is.
Okay,
right?
So the original,
that's what I'm saying.
So the original argument is that Taino people, we are a minority on the island of Quisqueya and generally in the Caribbean and the areas of our pre-Columbian domain due to colonialism. And it is within our indigenous rights.
You muted.
I put it back to no microphone.
Well, since it's just me talking, I guess I'll tell you all about the Mississippian mound builders and the things they're hiding in the Grand Canyons. You know, we're not allowed to go to Antarctica because there's a hole there where an advanced civilization exists, and they're hiding it from us. You know that? You could skip me. I'm just BSing to get through the time.
If that's a conspiracy theory or...
Yeah, I was just doing the Wobble conspiracies. You could skip me. I was just passing time.
Oh, I see. I was like, is that like a legit conspiracy theory?
Are we doing like favorite conspiracy theories? All right. So, my favorite conspiracy theory is matrix simulation. The idea that all of us exist within the simulation of a super advanced civilization that is either trying to learn something about their history or they're trying to program how a civilization that behaves like us would achieve some particular problem-solving goal. I think that's probably my favorite one. Oh yeah. Matrix and simulation theory, absolutely beautiful stuff. I will say it's most likely like not